What is up, Knicks fans? Welcome back to yet another episode of Fireside Knicks with your host, Dylan Backer. And today I'm going to talk about a guy that, we've talked about quite a lot this year for a lot of the wrong reasons. It's Mitchell Robinson. Now, we know how great of a player he is, but he's been injured all season long, and we really don't know when he's going to return. Now, before I touch on, Mitchell Robinson and the trade deadline and all that stuff, which is what I'm going to get into, I know the trade Mitch crowd is kind of split right now, 50-50. There's a lot of people saying that the Knicks should trade him because of the injuries and the fact that he's not available and the contract, all that. And then there's a lot of people that are saying that they should not trade him, that they should keep him because he provides what the Knicks are missing right now, which is the defense and the rebounding and all that stuff. Now, I do see both sides of it. There's logical arguments for each side. There's a logical argument for keeping him, for, having him come off the bench as depth, or even starting him alongside Karl-Anthony Towns and moving one of the guys in the starting five to the bench. There's also logic in moving him, for getting a guy that is durable, a guy that's ready to make an impact right now, because this team does have clear flaws. The depth is a big problem, and Mitchell Robinson being hurt is a big reason for that. And what I really want to touch on is just how risky how risky it is really to kind of keep him at the moment. And the reason I'm going to say that it's risky is because of this. I've touched on this previously, but I'm going to touch on it more right now. And it's because we don't know, when Mitch is going to come back. That's the obvious right there. We've been being told all season long, oh, he might come back around January. He might come back in February. We don't know. They talked about it earlier today. Tom Thibodeau spoke to the media today about him, actually, and he said he hasn't suffered any setbacks, but he still doesn't know exactly when he's going to be cleared for practice or for game action, all that stuff. Now, for me, hearing that kind of stuff is a little discouraging because, if we remember last season when Julius Randle was injured, we heard a lot of the same things. We heard, oh, no setbacks, he's on his way back, it's just taking time, this, that. And then he ended up missing the rest of the season and the playoffs because he had to get surgery, and it was later discovered that he did suffer a setback. Now, I'm not saying that they're covering up anything with Mitchell Robinson. No, I'm not going to sit here and assume that. We obviously can't just assume what's going on with a player's health, but at the same time, I think we have a good reason to be a little weary about it and really kind of wonder how close is he actually to returning. Because if he's not ready to return by the trade deadline, if you're the Knicks, I don't know how you can't trade him. I'm just being honest. As much as, I understand the impact he provides when he's on the court, but that's the problem. He's never on the court. He's missed so much time in recent years because of all the lower body injuries that, he's dealt with in the past few seasons. He's barely even played 60 games really at all in his career. I think he's only played it like once or twice throughout his career. He only played 31 games last season and missed the entire second round of the playoffs last year, basically. So, they were missing him big time last year. They're missing him again right now, and it's hurting the team. It is. The team is doing great right now. They're 29-16, third in the Eastern Conference. Things are looking good, but the bench depth, lack of, I should say, has been a huge problem. They're ranked dead last in bench scoring, and I know Mitchell Robinson doesn't really score a whole lot, but, he provides an interior presence that the Knicks are missing. They don't have that right now. And, maybe someone will say that I'm being a little contradictory here, saying, oh, but why trade him if he provides this and that? Well, I'm saying it because if he's not going to be on the court, why are we going to keep him? Why are we going to hold on to him and pay him, $15 million per season if he's going to continue to get injured? And if, with these injuries that he is suffering, these aren't no minor injuries. He underwent surgery on the same ankle twice in the past year. We don't know if he's going to be the exact same player when he returns. We can't just assume he's going to be. We also can't assume that he won't be the same player either because, he is still young. And he's also very athletic and all that stuff, so, and he's slimmed down as well, so who knows? Maybe he ends up coming back, he's still with the Knicks, and he ends up being tremendous for us. He ends up doing more than what we were hoping for and all that stuff. But there's also a likelihood that he doesn't do all that stuff, that he ends up being a little underwhelming, he's a bit step slow on the defensive side. We know that it usually takes him some time to kind of return to that full conditioned form that he usually is, so there's a lot of concerns there, and really, I think what we need to start thinking about at this point, with the trade deadline less than 2 weeks away, are we going to trade Mitch? And if we do trade Mitch, who are we going to get in return? Now, if you ask me who I think they should get in return, I don't have a specific player in mind. There's been a lot of different targets. There's been Jonas Valanciunas, Jordan Clarkson, Alec Burks. Those are just a few names that have been mentioned in recent weeks. But I don't think they need to target one specific guy. I think really they just need to get somebody that can provide some depth off the bench, whether it's scoring or size or something. A guy that can just come in the game and provide an impact, give the starters a rest, and someone that is healthy and will stay on the floor. Because That's the biggest thing. They always say the best ability is availability, and Mitchell Robinson has not been available for a good portion of the past few seasons, and that's a problem. As much as I love him as a player, as great of an impact he makes on both sides of the ball, despite not being able to shoot, I love him. I think he's a really good player. I think he would be really good for us off the bench. But I don't know if he's even going to play this season. I don't know if he's going to, and I don't think the Knicks can just wait around and see if he's going to be healthy because, the trade deadline, as I mentioned, it's less than 2 weeks away. So if the Knicks go past the trade deadline not making any moves involving him or anything significant involving the bench, and then it comes out that Mitchell Robinson can't play this season, worst case scenario, then what? Then what are the Knicks going to do? Then they kind of just have to hope that the guys they have are going to do something, which is a very risky bet because they haven't exactly done a whole lot off the bench this year as it is. Yes, they've had some games this year where Cameron Payne's provided a spark, or Miles McBride has done a really good job on both ends, or Precious Achiuwa does a great defensive job. I understand they're going to have great games, but you got to realize just how depleted the bench actually is. There's a reason why Tom Thibodeau is running essentially an 8 to 9 man rotation and why he's playing his starters up to 40 minutes. Now, we obviously don't want him to be playing his starters 40 minutes this early into the season, or, I don't know if we can say this early into the season anymore. We're about halfway through, but I think you guys get my point. Not in the playoffs. So, really, I think the Knicks need to start really looking into some trades for bench pieces that can give you an impact right away and that will come in and actually stay healthy. Obviously, you can't predict the players in getting hurt or anything like that. The healthiest guy in the world could get injured at any moment. I understand that. But at the same time, we know Mitchell Robinson's injury history is lengthy, and we know that there is a likelihood that it will happen again. I'm not trying to assume it's going to happen again, but we can't just keep banking on him to be healthy because every time we've done that, he ends up getting hurt again. It's been that way the past few seasons. If you could argue, matter of fact, you can't even argue this because Tom Thibodeau literally said it. If he didn't get hurt, we don't trade for Karl-Anthony Towns. We don't get Towns if Mitchell Robinson doesn't get injured. We probably still have Julius Randle on the team, and the team doesn't get broken up or last year's team, I should say, doesn't get broken up, all that stuff. Obviously, the trade worked out for the better. The Knicks are a much better team now. Towns and Brunson were named all-star starters, so I think that should just tell you right there how well the trade worked out. But either way, it really did impact Mitchell Robinson's spot on the roster, though, because you brought in Towns. And, there's been, like I said in the opening, there's been, some circulation about maybe when Mitch comes back, you'll put him at the 5 and Towns at the 4. Now, I'm not opposed to that, but at the same time, Towns has been great at the 5 this year. He's been, a top 3 rebounder, and he's been obviously averaging 25 a game on great shooting. I think when he's out there, the Knicks offense looks unstoppable, and I really don't know how you can mess with that. I don't. So if Mitch is still with the Knicks and he returns this season, I think he should come off the bench. I do. And that kind of further proves my point of why they should look to trade him because, if he's going to be coming off the bench playing behind an all-star and he's, going to be getting paid $15 million per season, I feel like that's a little bit of dead weight you're carrying a little bit, especially when he's not playing in the amount of games that he's missed this season, all that stuff. I think it's a little much to hold on to that contract. So, there's obviously a bunch of different routes they can take at this trade deadline. Their options are a little limited, but they have the opportunity to move some guys. Like Mitchell Robinson is one of the guys that can move. Jericho Sims is a guy they are actively looking to move. So they'll be able to get some capital at least, or maybe a bench piece or something. I expect them to do something. I don't expect them to do absolutely nothing at the trade deadline. I would be a little shocked if they just left the roster the way it was and expect it to be better than the Celtics or any of the teams out west if they were to get past any of these Eastern Conference foes. So really, regardless of that, I'm interested to see what the Knicks are going to do at the deadline. I do think, though, Mitchell Robinson's spot on the roster is, I think his job security is dwindling as the days go on because, by now we were hoping he would be cleared for practice at the very least, but he still hasn't even been doing that. He hasn't been sprinting. There isn't anything new about him, which is a little discouraging. It's a good thing that Thibodeau said he hasn't suffered a setback, but of course, given what I mentioned happened last year, we can't just assume that's 100% the case, but we can also only take what he said for the information we have, so we can't just assume anything else. But still, I hope he comes back. I hope he's able to play. I do like him as a player, but at the same time, if he's not going to play, the Knicks need to move on, honestly, and get some bench pieces that are ready to contribute right now. That's really all I got to say about him, though. I just wanted to come on here and talk about Mitch real quick because he's obviously one of the bigger talking points that this Knicks team has because I think we all know everyone in the starting 5 is safe. I'm pretty sure, that's pretty much it. Everyone in the starting five is safe. They're not going to get moved. But when you look at like the bench unit and stuff like that, anyone can go anywhere at this point. I mean, I could see any different scenario. I don't see any like blockbuster trade happening with any of these bench guys. But if there's any bench guy that is very likely to get moved that has the most value, it's Mitchell Robinson. And that kind of leads into my final point about that because, with Mitchell Robinson's value the way it is, if you have him come back and then he gets hurt again and he misses an extended period of time, his value is gone. His value is tanked, and then therefore you can't get nearly as much for him in a trade then than you could right now. Obviously, right now his value is a little tanked because he's injured, and teams are going to be reluctant to trade for an injured big man. But either way, if he's guaranteed to come back, you'll be able to get some sort of capital or some sort of bench piece out of him if you traded him now than if you trade him, a year later and he's injured again. So that's really some of the things you got to consider. There's no definitive conclusion we can make right now because really what the Knicks do at the deadline is all dependent on Mitchell Robinson's health. It's dependent on the way he progresses in the rehab and whether or not he's able to return this season or very soon. So that's really all I got to say about it, though. I really hope you guys enjoyed this video. Let us know what you think about Mitchell Robinson or any of the other trade candidates in the comments section below, because I would love to hear about it and chat with you guys about that. You can follow us on all of our social media platforms. We're on TikTok, Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, and of course this YouTube page that you were watching the video on. You can follow my personal Twitter account. It's right there on the screen. And I'll see you guys in the next episode of Fireside Knicks. Peace out.